The Seattle Storm are sending Jewell Loyd to the Las Vegas Aces in a blockbuster three-team trade that moves Kelsey Plum to the LA Sparks. That's according to ESPN. As part of the deal, Seattle receives the second pick in this year's WNBA draft from LA in exchange for the Storm's number 9 pick, while the Aces also receive the 13th pick, a second-round selection from the Sparks.
What happens in Vegas doesn't always stay in Vegas. Just ask Kelsey Plum. She's swapping the dazzling lights of Sin City for the star-studded streets of Los Angeles. On the upside, she won't have to handle A'ja Wilson's ego anymore, right?
Is a 6-time All-Star and 2-time champ with Seattle, while Plum is a 3-time All-Star with 2 titles of her own out in Las Vegas.
In a stunning turn of events, star guard Kelsey Plum has been traded to the LA Sparks as part of a 3-team deal that sent shockwaves through the WNBA. But this isn't just about one player leaving. It's about the unraveling of the Las Vegas Aces. Are we witnessing the fall of an empire? And who's truly to blame for this? Ready to dive in? Let's go.
Loyd to Vegas, Plum to LA. Just how does this maybe impact the landscape of the Western Conference? And I kind of want to also throw in the league as a whole, getting some of these big pieces now in new places.
Picture this. You're scrolling through your phone, minding your own business, when bam, the news hits you like a fast break. Kelsey Plum, the sharpshooter extraordinaire, is leaving the Las Vegas Aces. But wait, there's more. She hasn't just left. She's been traded to the LA Sparks in a blockbuster 3-team deal that has the entire WNBA buzzing.
Well, we have been hearing for a little while the reporting of Annie Costabile at the Chicago Sun-Times, as well as Roberta Rodriguez with Beta Basket. We've been hearing that Jewell Loyd, especially after the investigation with the Seattle Storm, was likely on the move. And then, of course, Kelsey Plum was cored by the Aces, though she was considered, and still is technically considered, one of the top draws in free agency as an unrestricted.
Let's break this down, because this isn't just any ordinary trade. It's the kind of move that shakes the entire league. Kelsey Plum to the Sparks, Jewell Loyd to the Aces, and the Storm snagging the Sparks' coveted number 2 draft pick. It's like a high-stakes game of musical chairs, but with superstars as the players.
When you have 2 names like that, 2 Olympians, just won gold in Paris, they are going to, as you said, draw a lot of assets. And when you see a 3-team trade, obviously this was about as many teams as possible, but especially the Seattle Storm and the Las Vegas Aces being able to get.
Now, you might be scratching your head, wondering why the Aces would let go of a talent like Kelsey Plum. Well, that's the million-dollar question everyone's asking. Remember those whispers about tension between Plum and A'ja Wilson? Looks like there might have been some fire behind all that smoke after all.
This reminds me a lot of me. Like, it's not really about me. And she knows how her privilege has gotten her to that point. And also, like, she's good at basketball, but, like, she understands her privilege. It's like what pushes her over the top, in a sense. It reminds me a lot of you. That's
But here's where things get really interesting. Kelsey Plum isn't just after a quick change of scenery. Reports suggest she's eyeing a long-term future with the Sparks, possibly extending beyond the 2025 season. It's not just a team switch. It's a complete shift in her career trajectory.
I think what we have seen in the WNBA, especially with the last collective bargaining agreement that the league is still under, though negotiating right now, we've seen a lot more player autonomy and movement, and that makes things really.
And the Aces? They're not just trading one star for another. By bringing in Jewell Loyd, they're adding yet another piece to their championship puzzle. But is it the right piece? That's the question on everyone's mind. Loyd is joining a team that's been utterly dominant, claiming back-to-back championships in 2022 and 2023. The real test will be whether her style meshes with A'ja Wilson and the rest of the Aces' star-studded lineup.
I want to go back to the Aces just very briefly, because you talked about how they were trying to get that 3-peat, but instead now maybe seeking to compete for their 3rd championship in the last 4 years, and certainly looking to build that core around A'ja Wilson. But just what does Jewell Loyd kind of add to now what the Aces are trying to build?
Some analysts are raising eyebrows at the Aces' decision. Plum and Loyd might share similar skill sets, but there are whispers about Loyd's recent shooting performance. Could this be a case of the Aces being too confident in their ability to mold any player to fit their system?
Jewell Loyd, again, has a very similar skill set in a lot of ways to Kelsey Plum. I think of players that can play that number 2 guard in particular, maybe have the ball in their hands a time or two. But with Jewell Loyd, her execution from the corner is lethal. And with Jewell Loyd, we saw that even at the Olympics, there was some controversy there with how she was utilized, or in fact, how she was not utilized by head coach Cheryl Reeve for Team USA. And then again, there were a few things going on with Seattle, and we saw a little bit of her productivity and specifically her efficiency dip.
But let's not overlook the sparks in all of this. They're not just acquiring a disgruntled star, they're getting a motivated one. Kelsey Plum is seeking a fresh start, and LA might be the perfect stage for her to reignite her career. Could this be the move that finally propels the Sparks back into playoff contention after a disappointing season?
A lot of people thought they could be in contention to over and usurp the Houston Comets for that 4-peat. Of course, that didn't come to pass. The New York Liberty are champions, let's not forget. But I think it's just a little bit of a different culture change. And I think with that, it means that Kelsey Plum, if she does go to LA, will be utilized for some of her experience and her...
All right, let's dive into the domino effect of this trade. If you thought it was just about Plum, Loyd, and a draft pick, think again. This move is reshaping the entire WNBA landscape, and we're on the brink of some serious shockwaves.
Cameron Brink, who was off to a fantastic rookie year before that season-ending injury. I mean, that's a 3-time All-Star. We talk about 2 titles, but just looking at her joining that, what kind of expertise, what kind of knowledge, what can that really do for, I don't want to use this, but what kind of spark can that be for the Sparks out there in LA? I had to use it.
Picture this. The LA Sparks, who were stuck in the basement last season, have just catapulted themselves into the spotlight. They've landed Kelsey Plum, and she's not just any player. We're talking about a sharpshooter eager to take center stage. And guess what? In LA, she's finally got her chance.
I think you're right. With Cameron Brink coming back, hopefully very healthy from injury, as you mentioned, she was a dynamic force for that LA team. I think it's the overall organization and some of the things, again, that this is a legacy franchise. The Los Angeles Sparks played in the first ever WNBA basketball game. And again, we've seen other teams just build a little bit more infrastructure around their players.
But here's where it gets interesting. The Sparks didn't just gain a star, they gave up their golden ticket. That number 2 draft pick could have been their shot at landing a generational talent like Olivia Miles or Paige Bueckers. We're talking about players who can transform a franchise overnight. Instead, the Sparks are all in on the present, rolling the dice on Plum's star power.
Heard a time or two the phrase hybrid rebuilds come into play. They have a new coach. They are going to have now, as has been reported, a new player in Kelsey Plum. So I think the leadership from Plum, and I think maybe the reset for Kelsey Plum, being in a new environment, maybe taking on a different role, because she's coming from the Las Vegas Aces.
Now, let's talk about the Aces. They swapped Plum for Loyd, and on paper, it might look like a fair trade. But dig a little deeper, and the cracks start to show. Loyd is coming off a season where her shot wasn't falling like it used to. Her shooting percentage was a modest 36%, compared to Plum's 43%. That's not just a small dip. It's a canyon-sized gap.
He was on the Olympic team, of course, has been with the Aces for some years. She just had her jersey retired by her alma mater in Washington. So there's a lot of great things. And I do want to say, I was in Paris for the Summer Olympics, and we got to speak to Kelsey Plum. She had a few things off the court going on, and she talked about just leaning into her faith and being so blessed, and just kind of almost laughing at all of the things that were going on outside of basketball.
But that's not all. The Aces might have just tampered with their secret sauce. Plum wasn't just a scorer. She was a playmaker who elevated everyone around her. Now, they've got a pure scorer in Loyd, but who's going to set up those easy buckets? The Aces' offensive chemistry could be in for a bumpy ride, especially with Aya Wilson demanding the ball so often. And then there's the Seattle Storm. They're sitting pretty with that number 2 pick, grinning like they just hit the jackpot. And honestly, they might have. This could mark the beginning of a new era in Seattle. Imagine Paige Bueckers in a Storm jersey. That's the kind of player you build a franchise around.
like the Las Vegas Aces, who they have a few moving pieces and moving parts. You can't always keep a championship team together.
Here's the reality. This trade isn't just reshaping 3 teams. It's shifting the balance of power across the entire WNBA. The Sparks have turned into dark horse contenders. The Storm are gearing up for a bright future, and the Aces? Well, they may have just cracked the door open for the rest of the league. Let's not forget other favorites like the Indiana Fever, New York Liberty, and Minnesota Lynx. They're all still in the mix. The 2025 season just got a whole lot more exciting. But wait, we're not done yet. The real losers in all this? It might just be the Aces and their so-called superstar, Aya Wilson. Think about it. They've lost a younger, more efficient player in Plum. Let's be real, Plum was the engine that made the Aces' offense purr. Without her, Wilson's going to have to work a lot harder for those easy buckets.
I don't know for sure, but I wonder if also this is maybe just a really important, even personal reset for Kelsey Plum. And again, there have been reports that the same could be in play here for Jewell Loyd.
Yeah, that puts things certainly in a different perspective, at least for her and her.
And here's a wild thought. What if this is just the beginning of the Aces' downfall? Key players are already jumping ship. Alicia Clark and Tiffany Hayes are free agents, and Kate Martin has packed her bags for San Francisco. It's starting to look less like a dynasty and more like a sinking ship. Remember the saying, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas? Well, not when it comes to the Aces drama. This team was on top of the world. They had it all. Championships, superstars, and an MVP. But now, it's like watching a high-stakes poker game where
We have to get better. We have to really take a sharp look at ourselves, look ourselves in the mirror, see our shortcomings, and then, you got to make the moves necessary, whatever that means, to put the best product that we possibly can. It's not going to be the same group probably next year. It just won't. And I'm sad about that because I really like that group. They were a pain in my ass, but I was a pain in their ass too.
Let's talk about the Aces offseason, because it's been nothing short of chaotic. First, GM Natalie Williams gets shown the door, and here's where it gets strange. Months later, her seat is still empty. It's like they're playing musical chairs, but the music stopped, and no one sat down. The coaching staff is jumping ship too, decided to piece out 4 of bigger opportunities. Natalie Nakase heading to the shiny new Golden State Valkyries? That makes sense. But Tyler Marsh trading the glitz of Vegas for the mess that is the Chicago Sky? And let's not even start on Angel Reese. Something smells fishy in Vegas.
What is going on in their locker room? Like, this Aces team is falling apart. This is not a coach that I would want to play for.
And now, the cherry on top of this disaster Sunday, Kelsey Plum is gone. Are you seeing a pattern here? Because Becky Hammon sure is, and she's not happy. In fact, she's been dropping some truth bombs that are making waves. Here's where it gets really juicy. The Aces' performance last season was about as consistent as a roulette wheel. In a critical Game 4 loss to New York, Plum, Jackie Young, and Chelsea Gray combined for just 28 points. And let's just say Aya Wilson wasn't thrilled about it.
I'm going to go out there and I'm going to try to be the best. I get y'all saying best player in the world. That's great. It looks great. But I want to be the best person. I want to be the best teammate because that's how I get the best out of my team.
But wait, there's more. Remember the De'Erica Hamby situation? That little debacle cost the Aces their 2025 first-round pick. Talk about playing with a stacked deck against yourself. And remember, when everyone thought Aya Wilson was the unbeatable superstar of the Aces? Well, it looks like her reign might be coming to an end faster than you can say dynasty. Let's talk about Wilson for a second. She's supposed to be the face of the franchise, the one who can carry the team through thick and thin. And to her credit, she had a historic season, becoming the first player in WNBA history to score 1,000 points in a single season. She even set the single-season scoring average record at 26.9 points per game. Impressive.
Everybody can be good here and there, but who can be great every single game, every possession? And that's what I'm striving.
But hold on, that's not the whole story. While Wilson was busy breaking records, the Aces were falling apart at the seams. Bet she's kicking herself now. Picture this. It's the playoffs, and tensions are running high. Coach Becky Hammon calls a timeout, visibly frustrated with her team's performance. She says, "I called a timeout because I was frustrated. Frustrated with us. It wasn't the refs. It wasn't the Liberty. It was about how we were playing. We know we're better than that."
Ouch.
That's gotta sting, especially for Wilson, who's supposed to be leading the charge.
The whole league has been pissed off for the last 8 months, and my players are in commercials and this and that and being freaking celebrities, and you get distracted.
But wait, there's more. Hammon isn't pulling any punches. She's calling out players for wanting to be celebrities more than basketball players. Wonder who she's talking about? Maybe a certain record-breaking star who's been more focused on her stats than the team's success. Hammon even dropped this bomb. It's not going to be the same group probably next year. It just won't. Talk about a vote of no confidence. The Aces aren't just losing players, they're losing their identity. Meanwhile, as the Aces crumble like a house of cards, another team is quietly building a fortress. Remember the Indiana Fever? The perennial underdogs? Well, they're not messing around anymore. What if I told you they're assembling a dream team that could change the face of the WNBA?
There's something about the way she plays the game, her passing, her shooting, that people really identify with. I really feel like we're poised and we're set up for a great, successful next era of Fever basketball.
Let's talk about the moves the Indiana Fever are making. Kelly Krauskopf is back as team president, and this isn't just any executive. We're talking about the architect who built the Fever into a powerhouse before. Now she's back to do it again. But that's not all. They've brought in Amber Cox as general manager. Cox is a league insider with a keen eye for talent. And here's where it gets even more exciting. Stephanie White is returning as head coach. White knows this team inside and out, and she's got the leadership and strategy to guide them to glory. And all of this? It's setting the stage for their crown jewel, Caitlinclark. You've heard of her, right? The basketball phenom who's been shattering records left and right. 62 records broken in her rookie WNBA season. That's not just great. It's otherworldly. Do you agree? Let us know in the comments. Like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications so you never miss out. Click the video on the screen, and we'll see you in the next one.